It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Thursday, January 9th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that's going to try and predict the Flyers quarter century team. Just the forwards today, though.
Try is the key word.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. I've been podcasting about the Flyers, the NHL, and hockey for a decade. I'm here with prospect expert and Flyers credentialed reporter for 19 years, Russ Cohen. To keep up with our latest episodes and Flyers news, you can find us at Locked On Flyers on all your favorite socials, including Blue Sky, and of course here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The Flyers are facing the Dallas Stars tonight. Both of us will be in attendance, so very excited about that. I'm in the Philadelphia area right now. It is also Ed Snyder Legacy Night again. And Russ, this whole thing boils down to you on our show last year, a year and a half ago. And Dan Hilferty heard our episode talking about our suggestions for the team, one of which was yours about creating some sort of night to honor Ed Snyder and his legacy. And here we are, it's year two. Like, how does that make you feel?
Well, you were a big part of it too. It makes me feel good. I mean, it's just, the guy is supremely important in the history of the league and the franchise, and it's good. Even one of the things this year, I forget, is something that we volleyed around too, that has now made it into the night. So, as part of the festivities, and I'm thrilled about it. I think it's great.
Yeah, I do too. And I think it's really cool that Dan Hilferty listened to.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. And, you don't expect anything like that to happen. You just, I'm just saying what I think on a show. That's it. Period. In a vacuum.
Yeah, it's super cool. So looking forward to that. We're going to preview the details of the game later in the show. But first, we are going to attack this quarter century team thing that the NHL is doing. And what they have been doing thus far is gathering quote unquote experts and ex-players from each team around the league and put together a first team and a second team of this century thus far. So that's why they're the quarter century teams. Right. And they started on December 31st at the Winter Classic with the Blackhawks and Blues. And they're proceeding from there through the end of January.
Although I'll say, based on the low TV ratings, probably not a lot of people saw that first team.
That's true. That is probably true. So I think, the only criteria that they gave is, again, they just got some people together that know about the team, supposedly.
Right. And there's no actual written criteria where it's like player X must have this, and this, or this, nope, that, and the other. And so it's just it's a feeling, man. So when everybody wants to have their nasty comments after all of this, I mean, I'm open to all of your opinions, but if you're just going to knock stuff down because it seems dumb, there's no criteria. So
nope,
have at it.
It's all opinion. So you can have your opinion. We'll have ours. Absolutely. The only criteria they laid out is that they have to have appeared in a game since January 1st of the year 2000. And that's it. So okay. I think it's fascinating. So
the Flyers, are we holding to that criteria is the question. Yes. Are you holding me to that criteria?
Yes, but we're going to talk about that. I just want to lay out kind of how this is going to roll out. The Flyers Day is Monday, January 13th. So we're going to do the forwards today. We're going to do the defensemen and goaltenders tomorrow on the show. And then the NHL is going to have a fan vote to boil all this down to the top 25 players for the last 25 years that they're going to run in February around Four Nations and all of that. So there's a whole other layer to it, which
I'll tell you who's mad about this criteria. who's mad is Ron Hextall because he stopped in
Yeah.
1999.
He
Like
did. He did.
basically the league is saying everybody's available for this except Ron Hextall, and that's why we're
I know.
instituting this. Like that's basically what they did.
Yeah. Well, this is a great transition into our first criteria discussion of all this, because I think when you're talking Flyers forwards, of course, one of the most important, if not the most important name to come to mind in this discussion is Eric Lindros, right? But do we include him? Because he played a mere 21 games in the time period of this criteria for the Philadelphia Flyers. In the year 2000, he had missed a couple of games due to one of his many concussions. That year, he came back. Then the Hal Gill hit happened, causing another concussion that wasn't diagnosed for a week. He was out the rest of the regular season. He had that awful collision with a Phantoms player on the conditioning stint. So he had another.
Francis Lassard, right? I remember that.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, of course, he came back for the playoffs, and the infamous Scott Stevens hit kind of ended things for his Flyers career. So this was the out with a whimper of Eric Lindros's Flyers career, but he's one of the best Flyers of all time. So do you include him in this discussion, Ron?
Yeah, he gets included because until the Scott Stevens hit, like when he came back, there was a lot of hope. And you can't worry about 21 regular season games. He sneaks in under the bar. He does the limbo, and he's right on the list, right on my list.
Yeah, I think I agree with that statement, and I put him on my list, and I think that his impact has been so profound on this team, its history, the big trade to get him here, everything surrounding the Wells Fargo Center.
The Wells Fargo Center doesn't get built without them having him.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why I think, even though he only played 21 games for the Flyers in this 25-year time period,
it's not that
it's
not that he only played 21. He only needed to do that to qualify, and that's all that matters, Rachel.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I think, for me, that's why I put him as first team center for the Flyers on my list. And I just don't think there's any other way around it here, right?
No, there's no. I mean, look, somebody's going to say in the chat room there is a way around it, but I'm going to guess 99.9999% of fans are going to agree with us.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that it's a real honor for him, first off, and especially, knowing what we know now. And this whole thing is knowing what we know now as far as this lack of criteria goes. We talked about the building. We talked about we can talk about the reconciliation and how big a part of the Flyers.
I mean, we could talk about Joey Merlino if we want. I mean, that'd be fun.
I just think that Eric Lindros,
he was a really good softball player, just so you know. Yeah. That's what I heard.
Yeah. Lindros's impact has been huge for the Flyers in this quarter century. So he's my first line center here.
Same.
All right, so who's going to be on the line with Eric Lindros? And I think, for me, there's no other person I want at right wing for the Flyers quarter century team than Mr. Jake Voracek. I think everything that he embodied from the time he came to the Flyers, he had a 727 game career, and with over 600 points. And I think that, it was a big deal when he came over from the Columbus Blue Jackets. And, we're going to talk about who might be that second line center, but they go hand in hand, right? Here. And I just feel like of all the people, I want to put Jake Voracek just because of everything he accomplished here.
Okay. I am going to say this, and people could get mad, but I'm putting Claude Giroux on right wing.
Ooh, that is a plot twist.
And I know there's some Flyers fans that say that, he was great. I think most of them. And then there's some that are like, he wasn't that great. I think he was. I watched him his whole career. I think he did all he could for the team. I think to say like he wasn't a winner is preposterous. And look what he's still doing beyond the Flyers. Like if you just didn't want to say he was potentially a Hall of Famer or something, he may not be, but he's a great player. So yeah, I'm putting him on right wing because he plays right wing now. So why not?
Yeah, that is really interesting because I did not do that in my
I know you
uh,
follow the rules. I
right
don't.
here. I did well, it's not there are no rules. That's the thing.
That's true.
And that's why I think it's
Structure. You follow
interesting.
structure. I don't.
I think it's really interesting that you chose to put him at right wing because to me, the right wing position was so stacked, and I have so many honorable mentions that I just don't know what to do with. That I put Claude Giroux at center, but I think that it's a valid choice to put him at right wing. Especially, you're correct. That's where he plays now. He played at right wing for the tail end of his Flyers career, where
He
he
did.
hit the 1,000th game, and he is
Yep.
the longest tenured Flyer in this time frame that we're talking about. So it is an absolutely valid way to look at things. We are going to continue this conversation. We'll get to left wing and run through all of our other names coming up next. I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, or comedy. And one of my favorite things is attending Broadway shows. I love going to them as often as possible. Now, Gametime has made it even easier to get tickets for your favorite events with their new feature, Gametime Picks. This feature filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And recently I was looking for tickets to Wicked, which I haven't seen in a long time, but given the movie, I wanted to see and remind myself how it ends. And so in order to do that, I wanted to find some seats. With Gametime Picks, I found amazing deals. I could even see the view from my seat before buying. The super deal was particularly impressive, offering great seats at unbeatable prices. Plus, they have all-in pricing that shows the total cost upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem with the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. On tomorrow's show, we are going to recap Flyers versus Stars, and we're going to talk goalies and defensemen for the Quarter Century team. Getting right back into it for the forwards. I think, like I said, for me, Claude Giroux is a center in terms of this conversation. You think he's a right wing. I think that's totally fine. I think both perspectives are absolutely valid
He's
here.
versatile.
So he was my second team center. So if Claude Giroux is not a center for you, who is your second team center, Russ?
Second team center. It's a tough one. Mike Richards.
I totally see that. And I think, I waver between Sean Couturier and Mike Richards.
I did too, but in the end, like we kind of can see the end of Sean Couturier's career a little bit now, and we know what Richards did during his, and I feel like, Richards is going to be slightly better.
Yeah, and Richards led the team to a cup final. I mean,
Yep.
You can't discount that.
No.
Just a huge accomplishment. And again, like I want to throw this guy a bone because he got a raw deal. And so
He
I want to
did,
name
although I
him.
wished he would talk louder in interviews. Sometimes he low talked it and it made it hard to cover him. But as a player, heck of a player, man.
Yeah, I think, if Eric Lindros was eliminated from the conversation here, if you want to make up that criteria, I think I would have gone Giroux and Richards with like a Couturier honorable mention there. I think you
Right.
can also throw Jeff Carter into the conversation, but more of his accomplishment happened not on the Flyers to
Right.
some degree. And so, I'm a little hesitant there, but I
Well,
feel
I
like
mean, I'm not
you at least
that
have to bring up his name, right?
You have to bring up his name, and that's totally fair to do that. And I think he gets in there for that.
So we haven't talked about left wing yet. So
Right.
for me, John LeClaire, like who else is there?
That's it. That's it.
Yeah,
I
super
don't know if
easy.
anybody's going to have anybody else, honestly. It's John LeClaire every day of the week.
Yep, for the first team. And then for me, the second team left winger was Simon Gagne.
Yeah, same.
So I think you can put JVR in that conversation as an honorable mention,
Okay.
but I just to have an honorable mention, I don't think there's any argument, in my opinion, that he would be above Gagne or Leclerc in this at all.
No, no way. I mean, you just look at what Gagne did uh, against the Bruins. I mean,
Hmm.
that's enough right
Yeah,
there, and he did a lot more than that. He was good in the
that
playoffs, like he just was.
absolutely, absolutely. So I think that JVR obviously like drafted by the Flyers, like it's a big deal, and I think
Sure,
that it's important
good
to mention
player,
his
no
name.
doubt.
But I just think he is absolutely an honorable mention territory here on the left side. But I do think the left side is the easiest part of this conversation. So going back to the right side, I had said Jake Voracek was my top winger on the right. Who was yours?
Well, I gave you who the top one was. That was Giroux. The next guy for the
Oh, right.
second is Voracek.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
again, few did it better than him. Tremendous assist guy. Really, he and Giroux together were great to
Oh,
watch.
yeah.
Big
I mean,
impact on games.
how many years did we have that running joke of ex Giroux Voracek,
Right.
in terms of that line? I
Yeah.
mean,
No, he was fantastic. Really, really, really good player.
yeah, I think so. For me, because I did put Claude Giroux as the second team center, I put Mark Recchi as the second team right winger. I mean, Hall of Famer, just huge, huge impact and continues to make an impact in the game. And, I just think that everybody else that's in my sort of honorable mention category here is just a hair below Mark Recchi in terms of his quality as a player, his impact on the ice and versatility on the ice. Like you could not go wrong throwing Mark Recchi out
No, and Recky's on my second as well, but as a left winger,
there.
because
Uh-huh.
I'm putting him in there because Mark Recchi is a versatile player and he's the next best player in my eyes. So that's where he is.
All right. So for me, on the right side, my honorable mentions, I started with Travis Konechny. I think, he hasn't gotten really to the apex of his career yet. I think
Right.
he's close, but I think he's got a long way to go. But that being said, he's kind of been the guy on this team, for the last several years. And when there's not much else happening, but you have a guy like Travis Konechny who's made the All-Star game, and is your team's leading scorer for multiple seasons, like you can't ignore that, even though you have like greats like Recchi and Voracek and to your point, Claude Giroux, like in the mix, right?
Yeah, I think that's fair. Um, Again, I'm not getting hung up so much on position like I have Danny Briere in that list. And
As
and
do
he
I.
yeah,
He's
and he was
right under
terrific.
Konechny for me,
Yeah,
and
and
you
I think
can't deny
honestly,
that too.
Briere is still better than Konechny. Konechny may end up better, and
Right,
because
right.
Briere in the playoffs was money, and so that's hard
Well, that's
to
why Briere's
discount.
on my list, right?
Right.
So you look at that Mr. Playoffs, moniker that he was given, and I think that it's undeniable the impact he had here and now continues to have here in management. But
Right.
I think that even with how much a team is and a player is appreciated by a team's fans when they leave and
Oh
how
yeah,
people talk
absolutely.
about them when they leave. And I feel like Danny Briere will always be in like in the good graces of Philadelphia Flyers fans. I
I
think
think so.
even if he doesn't win a cup as GM, I just think as a player that overcomes anything that he could do negatively in management. I think, somebody else from the past, not so much the case, but I feel like with him, that will be the case.
Yeah, I agree.
And then I just also felt like I had to put Wayne Simmons' name on my list
That's fair.
as well, just again, like he did so much, not just on the ice. He had that incredible net front presence, which is something we
Mhm.
have not seen since he left. We've talked about that on
No,
the show.
nobody does it
He,
like that.
nobody does it like that. And, he came here. It was a bit of a surprise for him getting traded from the Kings. And he just made such an incredible impact on this team, on the fan base, in the community. I mean, his involvement with Snyder Hockey and, programs around the community have made such an impact that matched his level of dedication on the ice that I just really felt like I could not have this conversation without at least mentioning him.
Yeah, like I have that picture when he came here, like with the Devils, and it just looks weird. But I took it because it looked weird. Like that's why I took it.
Right, right. So, I think that it's a tough choice, but I think we did it. I think we did a good job. But
Well,
you'll
it's up to
you'll
the
have to
people
let
to
us know.
decide that. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, we'll find out.
Yeah, just as far as the teams that have already been officially announced thus far, some ex Flyers have made other teams lists. So we had Patrick Sharp on the Blackhawks first team, Jeremy Roenick on the Arizona Coyotes second team.
Wait, I just got a text from Ken Hitchcock. He disagrees with you on that. I kid. About Patrick Sharp. I kid.
Yeah, yeah, I know. Cam Atkinson was on the Columbus Blue Jackets first
Of
team.
course. Deservedly.
The LA Kings weren't officially announced as of recording, but Jeff Carter and Ian LaPerriere are in the conversation for their
I don't know if Ian
first.
LaPerriere is going to make it, but Jeff Carter might.
Yeah, yeah. So ex Flyers abound everywhere. We'll see how they play out, and there's some interesting ones on the defensive and goaltending side as well, which we'll talk about tomorrow. In the meantime, we do have a game tonight to talk about against the Dallas Stars. We're going to do that coming up next.
From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, same-game parlays, and so much more. Again, I would take the Commanders over the Buccaneers. Money line. Just visit fanduel.com to join today and get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's fanduel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
So, like we said, tonight is Ed Snyder Legacy Night when the Flyers face the Dallas Stars. It is the first of two meetings this season with Dallas, and they are on a roll, Russ, with a a 5-game winning streak, 6-game point streak. They're third in the Central in a playoff spot. They are 5 points behind the Wild for that second spot, but the Stars also have 2 games in hand there. The one interesting thing, they're on this road trip right now that they just started against the New York Rangers, which was a whole thing. But they've struggled on the road this season. They're only
Mhm.
9-8, like just above 500 because of that overtime comeback win against the Rangers.
Yeah, that was an interesting one because it shows that even if the Stars aren't getting great goaltending, they could score and they could score
Yeah.
a lot. Some of the guys that aren't even on this team right now would be starters and top 6 players on other teams. That's how good the Stars are.
Yeah, they have so much depth. And, Tyler Sagan has been on IR. He's out
Yeah,
4 to 6 months. Mason Marchment is week to week. He
and
got
he's
hit in the
important for
face.
them. He's a good
Yeah,
player.
he got hit in the face with a puck. So he had surgery. And, we'll see in terms of that timeline, but he definitely will not be in this game against the Flyers. And it's just kind of a next man up with the Stars. And they've been able to have a really successful run, even with those guys out.
Yeah, no question. The depth is there. They have speed. Maverick Bork is a nice player to all of a sudden have in there because they're a good drafting team. Sam Steele is a top draft pick of years ago that has probably finally found his place. Logan Stankoven's still a really good player. He plateaued earlier this year. I don't think he's picked it back up, but he's a dangerous guy. They have a lot of players that will go in the crease, whether they're big
Yeah.
players like Jamie Benn and Jason Robertson, or even someone like Stankoven. And the Flyers did not do a good job of protecting the crease against the Leafs. It's not like buckets of goals went in, but when the Leafs needed to get there, they got there.
Yeah, I think, given that road record of Dallas, part of the reason is Jake Ottinger has had a real tough time on the road as well. His record was 5-5 with an 896 save percentage on the road prior to the game against the Rangers, which has not been ideal. And it's been sort of like as he goes, so goes the Stars
Yeah.
for a big portion of this season.
Yeah, I think there's something to that. I agree. I also want to mention probably the most underrated player on the Stars is Rupe Hintz. He'd
Mhm.
be a, s- a star, for a lack of a better word, on many other teams, and he just kind of blends in on this one. And then as far as defensively, shot blocking, and otherwise, Essa Lindell is just spectacular.
Yeah,
Like this guy is just money. Uh, you know, everybody likes what Ristolanen's doing. He's like Ristolainen plus. And he's not
yeah,
big as him, but he's just so skilled in his job. He's not a high scoring guy at all.
right, and when you have Heiskanen on the top pairing and Lindell on the second pairing, like, that's a
Yeah.
tough top 4
Yeah. When
right
you have
there
to
to play
start
against.
figuring out how to stop Heiskanen in a game offensively, going down the ice, he's got size, he's got speed, he's got a great shot. That's a chore too. I mean, this is a very
Yeah,
good team.
it really is, and interestingly, even though the record isn't as good on the road, their power play is much better on the road, which is inexplicable to me, but sometimes that's just hockey.
Yeah, sometimes, maybe they just are a little looser on the road. You feel a little tighter at home. Maybe you feel like the fans are judging you a little. But Dallas, they're generally not judgy fans.
That is true. At 5-on-5s, the Stars are 6th in the NHL in expected goals for percentage. They're ninth in the NHL in shooting percentage. They are averaging 31 shots on goal per game. That's a lot
So here's
to
the
average.
thing. So we talked about this last show. So the Stars are ninth in shooting percentage, and the Flyers are ninth worst in shooting
Hmm.
percentage.
Yep. One interesting pull, though, is that on that power play, even though it is good on the road, they have 4 goals against on the power play this season. So that could be an opportunity for the Flyers
It
to,
could be.
stretch a little bit on the power kill if the opportunity arises. Again, we've been pleased that they've been a little bit more conservative on the penalty kill to
Right.
try and get it back on track. But that being said, if the opportunity strikes, like sometimes you got to take the
Yeah,
risk.
sure. I mean, if it's there, you got to go for it.
Yeah, exactly. One of the other interesting things about this winning streak is that their previous games before the comeback win, they were down 3 goals to the Rangers and won 5-4 in overtime.
Yep.
Crazy. But like the big guns came up big. Robertson and Dadonov both scored in that game. Jamie Benn had the OT winner. Prior to that, their previous game was also an overtime win against Utah. So they had 2 overtime wins in a row. The 2 games before that, they won in regulation, both with the same score of 4-2, one against the Sens and one against the Sabres. So kind
So
of
they're scoring 3 or 4
medium
goals no matter
teams.
who's in net. Yeah,
Yep.
most
Yeah.
likely.
They're scoring at least 3, if not 4 or 5.
Right.
And that's going to be tough for the Flyers.
Yeah, you have to know that, and they could try and limit them. But then if they're trying to limit them, they're going to limit some of their own offense. Maybe they hold them down to 3, and 3 is right around that number where it gets difficult for Philly with their goaltending the way it
Yep.
is.
Yep, exactly. So, Tortorella wasn't ready to commit to who he was going to play in net as of practice on Wednesday, but you'd have to think Kolosov is going to get the start because Fedotov had 2 in a row, but you never know with the
You really
Flyers. And
don't. I mean, he's uncommitted. I mean, he's very non-committal about the whole goaltending situation, and honestly, there's not been enough transparency about that as to why they're continuing on with it the way it is.
it is a question that will continue to dog this team going into each and every game until Sam Merson comes back. And honestly, also once Sam Merson gets back,
Well, that's the
it
thing.
should be there as well.
I think because of the situation that they have with the 3, they're not going to rush Sam Ersson back because they got 2 other guys. But that doesn't mean it's not taking away from other development by taking away another roster spot. that basically you could have somebody occasionally check in on. Now you really can't. But again, it doesn't matter. They're not going to use that anyhow because, if they put somebody there, they don't play anyhow. So I guess they're better off carrying 3 goalies because then there's only a Lixell traveling with the team and he knows he's not playing.
Yeah,
Sad, but it's true.
it's true. It is true. All right. That will do it for today's show. We will be back tomorrow to recap the game against the Stars as well as attack the defensemen and goaltenders for the Flyers Quarter Century team. As a reminder, we always want to hear from you. If you've got different guys you want to put on your list or mailbag questions, let us know on any of our socials at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com or comment on our YouTube channel. I'm Rachel. I'm on Blue Sky and Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology on the same socials, SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen today. For your next listen, find Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Become a fantasy hockey expert and get the edge over league mates with daily tips from Steal and Flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a great day, everyone.